Mr. Ajaero, would you agree to the sentiment out there that you have been compromised?
Well, I think the people who say that should clearly explain, what they meant by being compromised. And I don't think that they know me,
When you say they don't know...
What happened was that we came for a meeting that the government invited both parties. And my friend Wabba-led said that he will not sit with Ajaero in this meeting, that we cannot sit together. He would rather die than do that. And in the process, the government has said, okay, if you want to sit with him, go ahead. And government feels that, no, we can't sit with this man and leave this man who carries the critical unions that if they take action tomorrow, it will affect government operation. And they met with him separately and met with me separately. Now, if that is what is called compromise, I want somebody to explain. But if there's any other thing, I want to hear of it.
The fact that you sat with the government, or you started negotiations with the government, there are those who have said that's good. That shows that you're thinking about the rest of Nigerians. But the matter of the minimum wage, how much of pressure is your union putting on the federal government to push that?
Well, if you check very well, and I want you to go to the archives, as at 2015 May Day, it was my group of the NLC that made proposal of 90,000 naira minimum wage, which was re-emphasized this year alone. And that is why you are having, the other group proposing 56,000 naira minimum wage, and we proposing 90,000. We are very, very serious about this, and we use all that we have to make sure that this is realized. I don't know what other seriousness we have, especially now that we have gotten the attention for it to be a part of the item to be discussed, that a tripartite committee will be set up, to handle this issue of minimum wage. Now, it's not left for those who are going to negotiate to make the best use of this opportunity to negotiate it out, given the prevailing economic realities in the country.
There's a loan of 2 billion naira that should be serviced by the NLC. Now we have two NLC. How do you service that loan? Who pays the money to the government?
Well, the government, when they gave that loan to NLC, to TUC, there is a group of the NLC that is holding that loan, that is holding that money, that is running the transport companies, that presumably might have bought the buses with the money. And they have not refunded a dime, just unlike the TUC that is servicing the loan. And this is part of the issues, that...
Comrade Ajaero, did you say not a dime has been paid?
The loan has not been repaid. They have not started repaying the loan by the NLC. Now, the TUC, to a very large extent, have paid some money. And in the behind-the-scene discussion, instead of talking about 145 naira, people were there talking about debt forgiveness or writing it off. And I think the government was insisting that, look, if the TUC have even started paying, you start paying to some extent before it is written off. So the people who are controlling the buses, who are running the transport company, and who are in possession of this money are the people that will pay. It's a simple answer.
Well, so sorry to butt in. I think I'm missing out on something. Are you saying that the NLC was presenting debt forgiveness to the federal government rather than, or as a bargaining chip for conceding on the 145 naira per litre?
Well, informally, it wasn't brought to the table. Informally, it was a demand on that debt forgiveness, and the tendency for it, to affect the negotiation, was part of the issues that some of us felt it shouldn't come there.
The way it's going, the nation will decide to ask you that question because these are perilous times for the nation. So many other places, even oil-producing nations like Venezuela, everyone is trying to see what they can do and help the economy. And Nigerians would love to see and NLC also redeem its image by paying some amount of money given to it by the people, which is the government here. And you say not a dime has been paid. How would you advise that the NLC goes about paying this loan, as it is imperative that the nation gets money owed by everyone and anyone?
Well, in the first instance, the loan was part of the palliative, given to during the last fuel strike of fuel protest based on the increase then. And then as part of the palliative, NLC was supposed to use that money to embark on this mass transit project. And I am telling you this on good authority that the TUC started in earnest, and NLC had a lot of controversies around its own project. And I want to say that when eventually it appeared that buses were secured, if you can go to Yaba office, Yaba depot of NLC, a year after the vehicles were procured, almost over 60 of those buses are still packed. They have not been rolled out. And Nigeria is suffering from transportation problem. So you see, closely related to this is the problem of inefficiency in managing the transport company. Because if the 60 vehicles have been on road, up to this moment, the NLC should be able to be repaying this loan, before we talk of debt forgiveness, if there is anything like that. So I think if the management of the transport company has been very effective, the NLC should have started repaying just like the TUC is doing.
So at the moment now that this is as it is, what specifically did you agree with the government?
Well, I have said 2 or 3 key issues. One, the minimum wage committee to be set up. That's the tripartite committee to discuss the minimum wage, which incidentally, when it is being discussed, you have representatives of NECA, that is organized private sector, but people marginalized representatives of the private sector. Now we have agreed that that tripartite committee be put in place. Now we are fully agreed, that the PPPRA, it must be reconstituted to look into the issue of pricing, including this, because neither the NLC or the government or a committee of the two have the right to fix prices of petroleum products. And if that board has been in comatose for years, now it has to be reconstituted within the next 2 weeks, to go into this process. And finally, we said on social security, and the federal government in the 2016 budget made provision for $500 billion for it, that this process be commenced with all the stakeholders, with labor, civil society, committee of political parties, the students, all this must be involved in this process so that we will not have a repeat of what happened in Shopee, to start the process of seeing how this will address the issue of the unemployed, the issue of the elderly, all these processes. Those are some of the areas we have looked at. And in the process, we have now looked at the issue of the committee, the board, to handle the issue of pricing, the social safety nets, and how to move forward from there.
Did you also consider asking the federal
government? To a very large extent, it's like it's the committee.
Mr. Ajaero, in your negotiations with the government, did you also talk about prosecution of those that have been found to be corruptly enriching themselves?
Well, I think negotiations are not wide. Negotiations are maybe issue specific. What brought us to this discussion was the increase in pump price of petroleum products. And if that is the case, and we are discussing it, if at any other consultative meeting with government, we will make our positions known on the issue of corruption, on the issue of how people should be prosecuted. But for now, everybody, even within the time wasn't even enough for us to go into the real nitty-gritty of negotiation. Therefore, what we did was to set up the committee that will go into details on all these other issues. But at time and time again, we have equally come up with our positions on this issue, on the issue of corruption, and how best we think it should be handled for people not to be victimized and for the real culprits to be brought to book.
Is there any difference between the palliatives that Labour did ask during former President Jonathan's time and the palliatives or the social safety net that you're asking now?
Well, I think that actually, even if you check the process of price increases, the way they have been doing it and now, the ones we are asking for now, in fact, we have not made additional provisions on what we are asking for. You know, those same conditions are still there. If you increase pump price of petroleum products, the transport fare will be high. And then we don't have enough public transport system. But what happened this time around was that the budget itself has made provision, you know, for social security that will kind of create a kind of permanent solution, not ad hoc. Now, what happened previously by Shopee was a kind of ad hoc measure to all those issues. But if it is captured in the budget year in, year out, you know, that this is the amount that will be taken care of the unemployed Nigerians, of those that can take short revolving loans to take care of themselves, of the sick, you know, then that is a permanent measure, unlike the issue of maybe Shopee, you know, buy cutlasses for people, buy this, you know, and it goes there, brings some money there, and up to now, I'm not sure it has been properly accounted for.
So, is the NLC faction you lead on strike?
Never. We never even fixed a date for a strike action. So we didn't call for strike, you know, and then we are not on strike, and we are not working against the strike called by other people.
All right, Ajaero leads a faction of the NLC. Thank you for talking to us today.